Here, when you experience euphoria, it's kind of a fleeting moment. You get the high, then you get the low. There, the peace was so euphoric, you just stayed up on the high. Constant feeling of peace and euphoria. You say that, oh, I feel so peaceful. Well, no, this peace, it actually had substance to it and a feeling, like a radiance to it. It was so incredible that it actually made me laugh and giggle. And the peace I can describe, you don't have any work, you don't have any responsibilities, you don't have anything pressing, any meetings, anything, nothing, just absolute peaceful nothingness.
Blissful, serene feeling, just floating there, no judgment, no reaction.
I remember this sense of peace.
I said, well, I think I must be dead. But there wasn't any panic up there. It felt like I was wrapped in this absolutely warm, loving blanket of coziness. And I felt just perfectly fine up there. All the panic had been left down there.
And the next thing I know, I am looking down at my body and I'm up in the ceiling. And the very first thought I had is, what am I doing up here? And I'm looking down at myself and I'm looking at the scene and I went, oh my God, am I dead? And with that knowing, it's like I had this shift in awareness because it felt like I could think, but it was a different type of thought. It was a different type of thought process. And as I had this awareness of the fact that I'm in the ceiling, at the same time, I realized, wait a minute, I said, I'm up here. I didn't say I'm down there. Like, why am I down there? I said, why am I up here? Meaning what I identified with was whatever this part of me was that was up in the ceiling. It wasn't the me that was down in a chair looking down in my physical body. And I had this epiphany. It was like a lock and a key. And I just went, wow, we aren't our bodies.
And then I turn and I look in the other direction and I can see the bottom of the lake and I see my body at the bottom of the lake. And I said, oh, I guess I'm not in my body anymore. That's fine, because I didn't care.
So I'm observing my body coming up to the ICU floor, which I believe was floor 7. And I see this one doctor who has a bald spot on his head and everybody else has scrubs on his head. But for some reason, I'm really focusing on this bald spot. And I didn't even know or care that it was my body. I was just very emotionless, just observing.
Like, it just no care, no worry, no nothing. It was interesting.
And I was watching and I recall feeling curious, just this detached kind of, oh, that's very interesting. I wonder what's going on there. And then I floated around to the left side of my body. And I started to feel more and more curious.
And for some odd reason, my curiosity part of my personality was at 100%. I was so curious.
When I walk here on Earth and everything, I kind of walk a little fast. I've always been like that. But up there, there was no sense of time. There was nothing.
But you find when you come out of your body, there is no time. It's just like, because everything's happening now. It's not like you go into the future or go into the past. It's all now.
All of a sudden, time stopped.
And it was in that moment that time literally stood still. It sounds so cliche, but that is exactly what happened.
I knew, I was very well aware. I was more aware than I am right now talking to you.
If you haven't ridden a bicycle for 10 years and somebody hands you a bicycle, you're going to know how to ride it. You're still going to know how to ride it. Well, that's how it felt. I said, the drop of water was dropping. And I said, oh yeah, I'm going to stop time. And I put my hand across just like that, just a wave of my hand. the drop of water froze in midair. Okay? My vision, I could, at will, it would just come close and far. And then it got even deeper. Then I said, I want to see it from every angle. And then 5 of me appeared. 5 of me. One was looking on the bottom of the water. One was looking on the front of the water. One was looking on the left of the water. One was looking on the right of the water. And it all was me. My face, and kind of like a white silhouette of a body, I would say. And this is the part. I would open my hand and the 5 would appear in front of the water. I would close my hand and it would all go back to me as one. And that fascinated me. So I kept doing it like boom, 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 boom. And then I would do it with a little shake. And then it would appear with a little shake, 5 of me. And then I pulled it back. It was like Bugs Bunny, I tell you. And I burst out laughing on the other side. And that was something amazing too, because when I burst out laughing, it sounded like my laugh was in the Grand Canyon. Ha, 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 ha. It echoed into eternity. I laughed just like when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, this is so much fun. I was having a ball.
In the most beautiful garden imaginable. And the lights of the vibrancy of the colors were so alive.
Some of the colors we don't have here, by the way. I learned later in my near-death experience that only our 5 senses, these bodies, we can only see and hear and touch and feel with the senses we're given here. But our spirits have a whole nother set of sensors.
It's very beautiful. It's very different. So the color is like a graduation of purple, but it looks like a spectrum of different kind of purples that we never seen here in this world. So and it's moving. So it's like spinning. It's very beautiful, and I hypnotized by just seeing the walls. Like I feel like I don't want to move.
There was one point in time when my angel was taking me to where my house was, and it's right next to a creek. And because it wasn't that wide, it wasn't more than 10 feet wide. And he had taken me down to the creek. And, you've got all the grass and the flowers. And then amidst the flowers, there are gemstones. And then they trail off into the creek along the sides and into the bottom. Mm-hmm. And they're vibrant and it's just gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And then he said, get into the water. And I'm not a water person. I love water to look at it, but I don't care about creeks, rivers, oceans. That's not my go-to. But he said, get in it. And I was like, okay. Mm-hmm. And I went into the water and it feels different. It's like the air. I don't know, how do you get into water and it doesn't feel wet? It doesn't feel wet. And when you get in, it's in some ways it's denser than water, but it's so weird. And when you get into the water, as he took me in there, he said, go under the water. And so I went under the water and he started talking to me and he said, now breathe. And I was like, oh my God, I can breathe. And I just started breathing and I just started laughing and I'm under the water and I'm laughing. It sounds crazy. Mm-hmm. It just really sounds nuts.
I mean, to me, it sounds amazing. The way you describe it makes me want to go check it out.
Then the most incredible bright white light exploded in the room.
Then I looked over to my left and there was a little white dot of light. And it wanted me, everything was through feeling. All the communication was through feeling. And I felt it wanted me to come to it. And I felt I wanted to go. So I started to move that way. And as I got closer, the little light became wider and wider and wider.
It seemed like a gazillion miles away was this pinpoint of light. And I kept looking at it, and I kept looking at it. So I literally just said consciously, what is that light? What is that pinpoint? What is that up there? And like zoom, I was like right there.
And there are 6 beings of light standing in the doorway facing me. It looks somewhat like they're wearing robes.
But I come upon these 3 beings and the feeling. So I meet these beings.
I think a lot of the people looked around 25, even though, you know, like some of them were grandmas when they died, stuff like that. But my guides looked human because humans guides have lived human lives. And so they looked or chose to look how they wanted to.
And there were shadow beings. There were these darker gray humanoid kind of beings. And in the front was a little boy, and he needed my help. So I went into the space, and they sort of fanned out to my left, and I went deep into that space. And then I looked around for the little boy, and he wasn't there. And then I felt all of these beings needed my help. And I wanted to help them. I felt back, I want to help you. And then they started to come at me one by one, sort of dart away. And they were taking my energy.
Do we see our loved ones on the other side? 100% do. And it's the best reunions ever.
And then I see this train of people walking by, but my grandpa, who had died about 6 months before that, he's at the head of this. And he's waving for, come on, come on. And he looked older, like he would have, before he died. And there was a train of young people behind him. This blonde-headed girl, just remember her standing out. She's going around my age, come on, follow us, come on. And for some reason, I just did not trust that automatically. And I thought, I don't know. Why would my grandpa, I'm reasoning, why would my grandpa be with these people here? What would he be saying? I just thought, I don't know. I'm afraid of that. What if I can't get back here to my body? If I move, where were they going? I was just very suspicious. So I just kind of made up my mind, no, I'm not going. I don't trust that. And as soon as I did that, it was almost like, now that I've said no to that, now the other can happen. It was like a test. And I really believed later, as I looked at it, that was a counterfeit escorting spirit. And then I saw my grandpa first thing. And now he looked young, though, like no more than 33 years old, just early 30s, late 20s. And dark black hair, slender, he's Sicilian Italian, so he's dark skinned, he just looked great. And I thought, okay, this is my grandpa. That was, glad I didn't follow that.
Bam! I went through this wormhole. It looked like a wormhole you might see on like that movie Contact, where she's going right when that ball drops through those spinning things. That's when I went through almost the same thing, but it was faster.
And into blackness, which became this tunnel, like this swirling tunnel. And the essence of who I was just rushing through this tunnel.
And this tunnel was like, it was surrounding you all around like a circle.
The more I stayed outside there, the more information I get. And it was like swelling. It was more information and more information. So I was having a ball. I mean, I was just having a party with my little powers because I saw that I was having more and more power.
It felt like a floodgate opened up, and my frequency was increasingly getting higher and higher, and I became more all-knowing and all-aware.
My hands hit the wall,
and I just lost it. I just lost it. I was just so upset and angry and hopeless and all these things. And I'm like, why can't I get through there? What is going on?
Then my grandmother came and got me and took me to this completely different place. And we ended up in this white room with a big giant white boardroom table and white walls. And then there was these windows, and that outside the windows was like galaxies, or the edge of creation, the edge of the universe, the point in which it is being created.
I was in that spot. I had like a life review. I remember planning this life. I remember planning it with a council. I know we were standing like around like a table of sort. It wasn't too clear to me. It was clear to me then, but it's really hard for me to put into words to describe what it was. And I remember planning this life and planning to come here. And all of that was being discussed as I was waiting and experiencing my life review. And it was then determined that I was to be sent back.
I saw this moment where I was sitting in an intersection and I needed to pull out, and there was a lot of traffic. So it was a left turn, waiting for a hole, it's rush hour, cars, no break. And then I see this small spot. I'm thinking, and squeeze myself in there. I think I'm going to have to squeeze myself in there, but it's probably going to make the person, behind me mad. And I did it. I pulled into traffic. And, I remember doing it as a human, and I was like, oh, thank goodness, now I can get home, right? Totally forgot about the person behind me. But from the other side, it was all about the other person. They were angry. They were not happy. I felt all that. I was them behind the wheel in their car driving. How's that even possible? Except that it is when you're on the other side, because it's a totally different set of physics, if you will, a totally different space, a way of interacting. And I felt terrible about it. Like, how could I do that? That was awful. I shouldn't have done that. I should have just waited my turn. So I was beating myself up, so to speak, about what seems like kind of trivial things here on Earth for most of us. And then there were a lot of bigger things, like, for instance, remembering some pre-birth planning. So my father was not a nice man to me. He was abusive. And I was able to see an answer to a lot of people who ask the question, why is there suffering here on Earth? How can you have so much love and joy and peace on the other side and then have suffering here? It's not logical.